When we are all doing all the stuff after I start interpreting, I am going to go ahead and go on a black screen, okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
So I like your background.
Yeah, my daughter took this picture. It's of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's from the San Francisco, like when you are going into the Golden Gate Bridge, looking to the other side of the bay, in Marin County. So you have the Golden Bridge and I moved over and I don't have the Golden Bridge. Just have the rest of it.
This is just a stock photo that comes with Zoom, so
Yeah.
easy just to plug it in.
Yeah,
You don't have to see the clutter in my room.
I know. I was playing. Yes. Well, congratulations to everybody and good luck to the candidates.
Yes, agreed.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't worry, it's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, you have a good team there.
Thanks, Marta.
Hey, thanks, guys, for doing this. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. We all do.
Definitely.
Happy to do it.
It all comes full circle, though. It's interesting. Greg was one of my younger brother's teacher, like way a long time ago.
Oh, really?
Oh my God.
Oh,
And he was looking at your picture there, and he's like, "Wait a minute, that's Mr. Land," and I'm like, "I'm sure, McKinley."
well, Leah, you look so young. Greg, I can't even
Thank you.
start to think how old Greg is.
Aw.
But you got me.
You look young too, Greg.
But Greg was 18 when he was teaching, so you know.
Oh, he was a
Yeah.
prodigy.
Prodigy.
Well, it's 7:01. Should we get started? I think we've already let
Yes, please.
people in. So good evening, and thank you for joining us for the San Mateo Union High School District Board Candidate Forum. I'm Sandy Del Balso with the San Mateo High School PTO. On behalf of the community in the San Mateo Union High School District, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for moderating and the candidates for participating in tonight's forum. I would like to introduce Margie Gator and Kathy Wheeler from the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County, and Marta Bookbinder, who will be our Spanish language interpreter this evening. Welcome, everyone.
Okay. My turn?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Buenas noches. Estamos aquí para darles la bienvenida porque se va a dar esta transmisión en español a través del Zoom y queríamos darle unas explicaciones. Por ejemplo, para tener acceso a esta traducción, tiene que tomar unas instrucciones cuando empecemos la actual presentación, en las que usted tiene que tomar un globo que va a salir en la pantalla en la parte de abajo y lo tiene que poner un clic en ese globo para abrir la parte que va a ser en español y comunicarse a ese canal. Entonces va a tener que hacer un clic ahí donde dice español. Tiene que también saber que en la pantalla va a haber también una diferencia. Si acaso usted está tratando de poner esta pantalla de Chrome entre nosotros, no va a resultarlo. Pero sí va a resultar si lo puede llamar por teléfono o puede usar otra computadora corriente. Así que cuando empecemos la reunión va a poder entonces poner un clic en la pantalla de abajo que tiene un mundo como de una cosa redonda y ahí le va a dar que puede escoger español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Marta. Good evening, everybody. I am Margie Gator, a member of the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. I will be the moderator for the San Mateo Union High School District Candidate Forum. Thank you to the district parent volunteers for being our partners in this forum. First, I just want to explain virtual candidate forums have some unique features, but we think we've designed a process for using the conferencing apps that will give everyone a good experience and follow the League's long-standing and well-received process. There is an admin timekeeper and a translator whom you've met, and me, the moderator for this forum. The admin tonight is Kathy Wheeler. She will be responsible for managing the virtual meeting and timing the candidates in their responses. Video is turned off by default for the audience. The only video that is enabled is for the candidates, the moderator, and the timer, who will be giving the candidates time cues. The audience is also not audible. This is to allow the candidates to speak without interruption. We urge everyone to submit questions. You can do that by sending an email to lwvncsmc.questions@gmail.com. And Kathy's holding that up for you. Feel free to send in questions during the event. No campaign literature or other material, including campaign component background photos, is permitted within the meeting. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of both men and women whose purpose is to promote active and informed participation in government. We appreciate the interest and efforts of groups like the district's parents volunteers in presenting events that increase voters' knowledge about the candidates and issues. The purpose of a candidate forum is to provide an opportunity for all the candidates to be heard at one time and to be questioned by you, the voters. We hope that by bringing the candidates and voters together face to face, voters will be better informed and will make wise decisions when they vote. We appreciate your interest and coming out to learn more about the candidates. Tonight, you will hear from the candidates for the San Mateo Union High School District. There are 3 candidates for 2 seats. The term of office is 4 years. The candidates, in alphabetical order, are Neil Kaufman, Greg Land, and Legia Andrade Zuniga. The rules for the forum are as follows. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. Then we'll move to the question period, which is the bulk of the forum. And during the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. All the candidates will obviously then have an equal time to speak to the question. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes for a closing statement. As I noted, Kathy is our timekeeper, and she will be providing some cues to the candidates on their speaking time. Again, if you have any questions, send them on in to lwvncsmc.questions@gmail.com. That's League of Women Voters, North Central San Mateo County, .questions@gmail.com. All the questions come to me, the moderator, and I've sorted them by subject, and I'll cover a variety of topics. We seldom have time to ask all the questions, and I may rephrase or combine some questions at time. So now it's time for the opening statements. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the order in which they will speak, and coincidentally, it came out alphabetical. Each candidate has 3 minutes for an opening statement, and our first candidate opening statement is Neil Kaufman.
Good evening. Hi, everybody, and very much a big thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this event. I'd like to start by talking about what the role is of the Board of Trustees at a high school district. The Board of Trustees is responsible for ensuring that the district delivers an excellent education to all of its students. The board members need to work closely with the leadership of the district to ensure that there's alignment as well as accountability with regards to the guidelines. And finally, this is a large and complex financial organization and has to work closely with the board with the district to make sure that we never run out of money. I'm a graduate of a public high school, the same high school where my parents went. I was able to get a great education, which enabled me to go to Harvard College, and I also was able to get my MBA from Harvard as well. I have a 25-year career in business where I was involved with investing and operating growing companies and involved in some very large, complex financial operations and organizations. In terms of the community, I'm a parent of a past, present, and future student at the San Mateo Union High School District. I had the honor and privilege of being the lacrosse coach, the varsity lacrosse coach at Burlingame High School for the past few years. I've served on several advocacy and oversight committees. Most recently, I was the chair of the Measure L committee. Measure L raised $385 million, which is going to be used for investments and improvements in safety, security, technology, and facilities across the high school district. As I mentioned, the first responsibility of the board is to ensure that the district delivers an excellent, equitable education where every student can fulfill and reach their full potential. Financial management is crucial because we have the resources, to deliver an excellent equitable education, attracting and retaining the best teachers, and just having a great experience for our students, faculty, and staff. As long as we spend the money effectively, efficiently, and responsibility with good accountability, we can deliver a great world-class education. And finally, the board must ensure transparency so we can get input from and clearly communicate back to the community. A couple of examples are we should have a very clear plan about how we could get our students quickly and safely back to school. We need to talk about how we're going to implement processes and procedures so that we deal with these issues of hate crimes, so that hate cannot fester in our schools. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you. And our next opening statement is Greg Land.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to thank the PTOs and parent organizations for helping organize this, as well as the League of Women Voters. Thank you so much for doing this. My name is Greg Land, and I have been on the board for the last 5 years. I want to say that for me, what's really important is balance. I've been on 2 boards now, and Burlingame Elementary School Board and this board. And what I found is you need to have a balance. And one of the unique features that I have for this balance is the education background. I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, I've been a parent, and I've been on two boards as well. I think that experience is very vital to what we're talking about when we have to make tough decisions. A good example is, how are we going to get our kids back on campus? How are we going to do it safely? I have that experience that I'm working on right now as my first graders and kindergartners are getting in. It's going to be that harder to get 9th graders, 10th graders, and seniors onto campus as well, and going class to class, how to make that happen. An educator has that background, and I think that's an important component that I need to bring to the table. My wish, and why I'm running again, is I think we have more to do. This whole COVID experience and going virtual has really exposed the need for better equity for all our students. There are a lot of students who are vulnerable and are not getting access to what they need and the resources that we are trying to give them. I think we've done a good job, but we can do better, and we need to do more. And I'm not wanting to stop. I think part of what I want to also bring to the table is innovation, thinking outside the box. I think it's critical to bring innovation to our schools, have us think outside the box so that it's not just the same old, same old. I think right now this environment is really trying to create that. I've seen teachers trying new things, trying new technologies, and I think it's amazing to see the progress that we've made, even in just a short time. But there's still more work to do. I think the final thing is about engagement, student engagement. I think one of the most important things that I feel as an educator doesn't happen enough is to engage our students and give them a student voice. Having voice helps engage them, and I think that's something that I'd like to see happen more of. We did that when we did the dress code. I was president at the time, and we actually asked the students what they thought was important, how they thought we should alter and change things, and they became part of the process. I think we need to keep doing that in all the things that we do. Right now with this virtual learning, we need their input, and we need to get them to understand, them to help us decide where we need to go and how we're going to do it better. So thank you very much, and I look forward to this discussion.
Thank you. And our final opening statement is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
Hi, everyone. My name is Legia Andrade Zuniga. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I identify as a woman of color with a disability. I first wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. I also wanted to thank our community for tuning in and taking the time to get to know us better. Whoever you elect will be entrusted with an important decision on your behalf. So I sincerely appreciate our students, teachers, and staff for engaging with us tonight. I care deeply about the success of the San Mateo Union High School District. I was born and raised in the area. My dad has attended adult school. I have 2 boys that were raised in this district who are now in college. One graduated from Hillsdale, the other one from Burlingame and Middle College. Both of my sons had different learning styles, and one of them required an IEP. Meanwhile, I participated in the BHS parent group, where I started a Latino parents group, served as a parliamentarian of the Hillsdale High School PTSO, shout out to my PTSO, and started the annual Dia de los Muertos celebration with the Latino Unidos Club. My experience includes a master's degree in public administration, over 20 years of nonprofit boards, school committees, youth-based organizations, county and statewide commissions in different capacities, and even as a treasurer. As an example, I'm currently the chairperson for the San Mateo County Health Commission. I understand how governance, finances, and budget work and the public process. If I'm elected, I'll be accessible to all of you, and I'll work collaboratively with all of my stakeholders. High school is where my love for social justice was born. There weren't many women of color who were in leadership in my district as role models for me. My senior year, I was very fortunate to have a teacher who was a strong woman of color. She pushed us to learn about our culture and our history. She even encouraged us to advocate for issues that we cared about to the Board of Trustees. What I noticed at the first board meeting was that no one there looked like me at all. That experience inspired me to engage in civic life and become a leader in my community, and I've been doing that ever since. In 2009, my sons and I were in a really tragic car accident where I became a quadriplegic from a spinal cord injury. As a woman of color, I often felt invisible. However, it wasn't until I acquired my disability that I came to understand a whole new type of invisibility. Education provides tools for a better future. Our district must provide a great education for every student. To achieve that goal, representation matters, particularly on a governing board. Our high school district has a large percentage of students of color, women, and students with disabilities, and my candidacy provides both representation and hope for all the students. History has taught us that diversity, inclusion, and representation lifts everyone up and helps every student because it strengthens our communities. I look forward to answering all your questions this evening, and I hope to earn your trust and, most importantly, your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time to move on to the question period. Again, each candidate will have a minute to answer. And if you haven't written your questions, please send them in to the email that Kathy's holding up in the window there. lwvncsmc.questions@gmail.com. So we'll get started. The first question is, what's the job description for a district board member? What do you think the job description is for a board member? And we will start with Neil Kaufman. You're on mute. Come off mute, and then we'll start the timer.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Number one is they really need to know how to come off of mute when appropriate. The role of a board member really is to provide guidance, oversight, and accountability for all of the decisions that are made at the district. So they have to sit there and work closely with the superintendent, work closely with his team, in this case, Dr. Kevin Skelly, his team, to make sure that we are appropriately providing an excellent and equitable education and having the finances backing that up so that we can actually deliver that and that we can make sure that we're allocating resources effectively and responsibly so that we can actually meet our objective, which is to deliver an equitable and excellent education. And then I think a board member needs to serve as a two-way vehicle for communication, gathering input from the entire community, being accessible to the community. And so bringing that into the conversations at the district so that there is an input path. And then finally communicating back out. The decisions are made, here's the process that we're taking, here's the decisions that we're taking, and provide accountability and follow through so that those decisions are actually followed out and carried out for the benefit of our students and our community.
Thank you. And next on this is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
So governance, right? Governance, accountability, fiscal oversight. But one of the things that wasn't mentioned, that I completely, agree with what Neil was saying. But one of the things that wasn't mentioned was that we need to understand who our community is that we serve and have that connection. Yes, we need to have a two-way street in talking to our community as well as our funders, as well as people who we are responsible for, and to communication and a good relationship with our superintendent, support for them, support for our teachers, support for our school staff, but also having a direct relationship with our students, being visible, being involved in our communities, and creating different types of creative, other types of creative options that perhaps haven't been seen in the traditional type of, I guess, for example, like if there's something that's not going right, then perhaps we can solicit from some creative ideas, and that can also be from our community.
Great, thank you. I have been reminded that the YouTube audience can't see the questions email alias because I'm talking and Kathy's window does not show. So I'm going to hold it up for a minute and talk so that they can see them. And I'm also going to ask the next question while I do this. The next question is, how have your educational and experiential backgrounds prepared you to be a significant financial, for the significant?
Margie,
Yes.
Or Greg.
Greg never answered the first question.
Oh, I do that once a
Sorry.
form and I got it out of the way early. So Greg, what is
God,
your?
Greg, she made a mistake. This is amazing.
No, I totally understand. I'm the one who's been on the board for 5 years, so I kind of know the job description pretty well. But I will tell some insights to what it really takes. One is about having to push the administration's thinking. I think one of the things we have to do on a regular basis is to question what they're doing and to kind of challenge them. I think that includes what Neil and Legia was talking about, which is gathering your stakeholders, knowing what's happening, knowing what everybody is talking about. I also think it's important on the high school level to know the high schools. Each is a unique high school and each have different needs, and knowing that and balancing that with the bigger oversight that we do is a very important part of our job. Also understanding like the curriculum and instruction and teaching and what we're trying to do with what direction we're going in. So it's really to push that vision. I'm going to go back to that, is really pushing the vision for the school district and making sure that it's been initiated and holding them accountable to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies. All right. So again, I'm going to hold this up while I ask the next question. This is the email alias. You can send in questions. And the next question is, how have your educational and experiential backgrounds prepared you for the significant fiduciary duties required of a board member? How has your background prepared you for the significant fiduciary duties required of a board member? And the first to answer on this is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
So I have a master's degree in public administration, and one of the classes we had to take was fiscal oversight. So just, I guess, the fundamentals, that's where I learned that. Secondly, I've been serving on boards and commissions for a very, very long time. Understanding complex budgets like we have in the district are not easy, but they're doable. I serve on the board of directors for the Center for Independent Living. So the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities here in San Mateo. Independent living budgets are very complicated because we have different fiscal years, we have different grantors, we have different funders, things like that. And so to understand the calendar cycles and understand where those funds come from, what types of requirements are needed to be met, all of that is complex. And so again, from all of the experience I have, there's also a huge multi-million-dollar budget that we deal with the health plan.
Thank you. Thank you. And next is Greg Land.
Thank you. So from my experience, I've been a principal working with budgets on a school level. I've worked in Burlingame Elementary School District, which was for 10 years of budgets that both went through the economic boom and the economic bust. I think for any candidate, they need to be aware of what happens when we go into a recession, because in education, it's a roller coaster ride and you have to be prepared for cuts. I think part of that is knowing where to cut and how to do it in a responsible way, furthest away from the classrooms. I also know that part of what we've done over many years, or my experience and my background, talks about all the budgets in school districts. A majority is about the employees and how we do our negotiations and how much money we can give to them, because they are our bread and butter. They're the reason why we succeed. And so how do you balance that with the fiscal responsibilities? And so making sure that you have a decent reserve, but not too much, making sure that you have programs that you can work with for students. And
thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. And next is Neil Kaufman.
This is a really crucial question for our board. Over the next 4 years, the San Mateo Union High School District is going to spend or allocate over $1 billion. The district has an operating budget of $180 million a year. That's about $500,000 a day. That needs to be spent and responsibly with significant accountability to make sure we deliver an excellent education. My background, educational background, getting an MBA from Harvard, My work in finance over the past few years will be very instructive for this. And then finally, I've worked closely with the financial team of the district in the work I did leading Measure L, which raised $385 million so that we can invest in safety, security, and technology to support our children. This is a really important topic. Talking about finance isn't fun. It's not exciting unless you run out of money. And then it becomes really exciting in a bad way. So a key role of the board going forward is how do we properly allocate and administer this $1 billion expenditure? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is COVID related. What is your position on getting the students back into school as soon and safely as possible? Would you like to see the district be one of the first or last districts to return to on-campus learning? What's your position on getting students back to school as soon and safely as possible? Would you like to see the district be one of the first or last districts to return to on-campus learning? And first is Greg Land.
Thank you. I'm currently, as a principal, working on bringing back students right away, and we're one of the earlier ones doing it. But I will say there's a very big difference between elementary school and high school. I think we need to do it safely. I think we need to do it in a proper way. I think we have to plan for it. I don't want to see us just jump right in. We need the safety of our staff, the safety of our kids are got to be paramount. I'm writing a letter today that has given exposure to students because one person has gotten COVID from a daycare facility close by. And I don't want to see that happen to our kids as well. We have to be careful. And so we have to do it in a measured response. If you've seen any of the board meetings that you've heard, you've seen me go slow to go fast. If you have it measured and you have it in a detailed way, bringing people back, bringing the students back, I think it will work. If you do it too fast, you're going to be closing down. We've seen it time and time again in school districts. So my measure is go slow to go fast, have a plan, show that plan, be very transparent with that plan.
Thank you.
Slowly. Okay.
Thank you. And next is Neil Kaufman.
The situation with COVID really exposes it is probably the least equitable situation we possibly could have. It's challenging for students that don't have access to technology. There are social emotional learnings, there's mental health issues. We need to get our children back to school as quickly and as safely as possible. And what that means is we need to have a plan. And a plan needs to entail the following things. We need to have metrics that we gather information, input from the community, from the health industry, from our teachers that says, this is when we're going to send our kids back to school so that we can be safe for the children, the staff, the teachers. We then need to be able to understand from the district, what are they doing to make it safe? What investments are being made? We know nothing about that. We're not getting the information, investments in protective gear, et cetera. And then finally, we need to know what accommodations are going to be made for the students, for the teacher and the staff that are at risk so that maybe they can have an opportunity to continue online learning in a manner. But we really must, for our children, get our schools open as quickly and as safely as possible by having a plan.
Thank you. And finally, Legia, Andrade, Zuniga.
Well, I'm all for keeping people healthy. I'm in one of the communities that that an exposure is an extreme risk to my health. It could be deadly, and I want to make sure that we listen to the experts. There is no perfect solution for any community. Everybody is super different, and like both Neil and Greg were saying, what equity, like what is going on in each community that we need to listen to be able to make it safe, but also fair, and also just like the ability to be there and to have our students be on campus, and like what does that mean? So I think for me, it's keeping people safe, listening to the experts, and what is the best way to do this.
Thank you. And our next question is, what can the school board do to ensure that questions and concerns raised by stakeholders, meaning teachers, families, community, to the district are heard and not dismissed? What's the current system for addressing this issue, and how can it be improved? What can the school board do to ensure that questions and concerns raised by stakeholders to the district are heard and not dismissed? What is the current system for addressing this issue, and how can it be improved? And first on this is Neil Kaufman.
I know this is a great question. In the past, I've served as the CEO of a publicly traded company, and I've been on the boards of publicly traded companies and nonprofit organizations. A key role of the board is to serve as one of those important interfaces with the community. We need to go out there, be present. I have children that are in the high schools, that are going to be in the high schools, and really make sure that we're going out there with surveys that are rigorous, where we're gathering data and presenting the data so that we can take that back in as we make decisions. And then when decisions are made, the district needs to present two things. What is the process we're going to use to make a decision? And then track that along the way. And then what decisions have been made, and really hold ourselves accountable to ensuring that if we've made a great decision, how over time are we going to be able to make sure that we hold the district accountable so that we can deliver that excellent education and that appropriate decision to our community.
Thank you. And next is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
Thank you. So I'm an open book. I am accessible to everyone. I don't mind the questions over the phone, over email. Currently with this election, I've had several people email me. I prefer to call them personally and have that dialogue, because I really want to make sure that people know that I'm present and that I'm listening, and that I listening without judgment, to make sure that certain concerns are followed through. Yes, I will bring them to the governing body, to the rest of the board members that are also there to make decisions with me. And I'll ask, how we can work together to make this happen. But I will ensure, I'll get back to the people that want answers from me, and make sure that they know that I'm working on whatever it is that they need. But also be present in the community, be visible, join different meetings, show up on campus, have our students know that I'm here.
Thank you. And finally, Greg Land.
So I think it happens in a variety of ways. As a board member, I'm always accessible. I get tons of emails. I always get phone calls. I'm always willing to address who's going to talk to us. I think the next best thing is having them come to the board meeting. They can address on-topic agenda items or non-topic agenda items, and it happens quite a bit. A lot of controversy, but at least we get people's input about what's happening. But my biggest fear is the ones of the silent voices that we don't hear from. I think it's important to hear from like our DLAC, which is our District English Languages Advisory Committee, and hearing their voice. Over the last few years, we've really made an effort to work with them and have them present, thanks to one of our employees, Samia Showman. And I think it's incredible the work that can be done. Is it enough? No, because we need to still look at getting input from all the stakeholders. And that includes students too, which is I was talking about earlier, is trying to get them engaged and having their input. I think a strong student board member has always really helped us understand what's happening in the community and happening with the students. So I think those are just some examples. Thank you.
Thank you. Marta, I'm going to skip down the question list a few questions. The San Mateo Union High School District is currently under investigation by the San Mateo Grand Jury for civil rights and Title IX violations and the administration's failure to respond. At an October 8th board meeting, it was further articulated that a, quote, firewall from the administration is blocking the board from the information it needs. What is the proper response by the board, and how does the board gain access to the information it needs? I'll repeat. The San Mateo Union High School District is currently under investigation by the San Mateo Grand Jury for civil rights and Title IX violations and the administration's failure to respond. At the October 8th board meeting, it was further articulated that a firewall from the administration is blocking the board from the information it needs. What is the proper response by the board, and how does the board gain access to the information it needs? And first is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
This is a great question. I think for a long time, things have not been done properly. But this is a great time to be able to have that change. We can elect people that will be there for the community, that do bring that expertise in how to bridge gaps, in how to build community, in how to build trust. And that is where it's important in moving forward. I think people for a long time haven't been heard. And I think people for a long time have felt disconnected, and perhaps that's where it's coming from. in one particular instance that I actually have felt myself, because I have experienced some serious racism and discrimination in this district. I can say that it's definitely a problem, and that if I were to have come to the board and I didn't feel heard, I would definitely have said something, negative. And so we can't keep allowing that to happen.
Thank you. And next is Greg Land.
I think one of the specific things that the grand jury talks about is the hate crimes that have happened at several campuses, including Burlingame. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to properly address the problem of students in our community doing these hate crime issues and really addressing it through education. And I think that is a process that needs to happen. We also need to implement at the district level, which we've started doing at a board level, which is bringing on equity practices, but also talking about implicit bias and talking about bias of many different levels and how to change that from perspectives. And at one of the former board meetings we just had, several students came up and talked about that and talked about what needed to happen. It is a problem in our country right now, and this is just an exacerbation of that in this situation, and I think we need to do something about it. So yes, I was very strong in that meeting saying we are going to do something, and I'm complete in agreement with that and want to see change.
Thank you. And finally, Neil Kaufman.
First of all, we have to call this by name. Racism, sexism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Asian activities have no place in our community and definitely no place in our schools. We need to be vocal about that. The question is specifically about this firewall between the administration and the board, which was raised in the grand jury. In my opinion, I've worked closely with Dr. Skelly and many members of the board on this Measure L process, and I think that they're committed to resolving these issues. My experience is when you're not getting the information that you want, it's usually because you haven't asked the right questions. We need to sit there and go and hold the district accountable for these actions. We need to make sure that we are educating our community that a minor comment made in jest can be hateful. We need to make sure that we have processes in place so that our students can comfortably report these activities, and then we can support the victims and provide appropriate education in response to the perpetrators. And we need to communicate this to our community. We need to ask the right questions of our district and deeply need to follow through to make sure that hate cannot fester in the San Mateo Union High School District.
Thank you. Our next question is kind of on the same topic. How would you want the schools to address the Hate at Schools article in a time of distance learning? How will you try to gather feedback and suggestions more frequently from all students of San Mateo Union High School District? How will you want the schools to address the Hate at Schools article in a time of distance learning? How will you try to gather feedback and suggestions more frequently from all students of San Mateo Union High School District? And first is Greg Land.
So it kind of hinges on what we were just talking about. This is not something that can happen overnight. It has to be discussions with students. It has to be talking with teachers, having this discussion in several forums and different forums. It has to do with education. It has to do with having open dialogue and having these discussions with students so that students who are of Jewish, of all different ethnic backgrounds, of all different gender identities, and being able to talk and speak their truth, and being able to have them speak their truth has that voice and brings that voice to the table. And I think that's the only way we are going to change this within the school structure. Hate is something that needs to be torn down. And I think we have to do that through talking with respect and changing the way this hate crimes are happening and have that being punished as well, and having consequences for those who do those things.
Thank you. And next is Neil Kaufman.
If I understood it correctly, Margie, I think the question is specifically about hate in the era of distance learning. Is that correct? In this way?
It's addressing the Hate at Schools article in a time of distance learning.
Okay. So thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Look, as I talked before, we need to make sure that hate does not fester in this district. And I know what the district is doing. I've been involved for a bunch of reasons with what's going on. There's only so much that you can do from a distance. Cyberbullying is a difficult challenge. It's a difficult challenge for our district. It's a difficult challenge around our nation. I think with this, when you saw about the students, the surveys of the students, only 23% of them found themselves engaged in distance learning, and only 15% of the students said that they're engaged with our community. I think we need to try to continue to do our best in this distance learning, but it really speaks to doing what we can to get our children safely and quickly back into school, putting a plan in place, because we need to address these issues of social emotional learning. We need to address these issues of mental challenges. We need to address these issues of hate. And the school, with our great teachers, is the best place for us to do that. This is important for our society, it's important for our schools, and it's important for our students.
Thank you. And finally, Legia Andrade, Zuniga.
So all kinds of isms are learned behavior. It comes from some place from childhood. So I really believe that we need to give not only our students the tools, but our families, our parents, our teachers, and create some sort of educational system on how we can address these types of things at home. Right now that students are home with their families, perhaps using that in the curriculum, but giving teachers more opportunities to be able to teach about different cultural and different, cultural, and I use also disability, because disability is a culture. Some more information on other, different cultures that there are, and create some sort of understanding from our students and some sort of like connection. We need to connect each other, perhaps even starting some discussion groups, positive discussion groups, and also just some sort of place where the students can reflect and they can discuss their ideas.
Thank you. Another question from the voters is, how do you feel the district can best support undocumented students? How do you think the district can best support undocumented students? And first is Neil Kaufman.
So there are two ways I think we need to address this question. First of all, the district is dedicating a significant amount of resources to our students. By the way, it's I think our district is about 30% Latino and also 30% Asian. I think we want to make sure that we also include a large segment of our community, which isn't often discussed, as the Asian community. So we need to make sure that we have effective English learning programs so that we can equitably provide an education. There are students who should be able to go get a high school degree, go into the trades, but also there are students who can come in just because they don't speak English. They should be able to go to 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, and the school needs to be able to provide an opportunity for each one of those children to achieve their full potential. In terms of the undocumented status, we need to loudly say that the schools are a sanctuary. Parents need to know when they drop off their children, this should be all over the place, but specifically in our schools, that this is a sanctuary, that we are going to stand up and we're going to defend the rights of our undocumented students. They're going to be just like all the other students. So we're going to provide the education that they need to achieve their full potential, and we're going to do it in a safe place so that they know that when they're there, they're supported by the school, the teachers, and our community.
Thank you. And next is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
It's a great question. It's very dear to my heart. My parents, when they came to this country, were undocumented. And it took a long time for them to get their citizenship for many different reasons. And so this is very important to me. I think that we need to talk with our families and see what resources they need, what's lacking. We need to be able to bring in places like Pangea, places like Bay Area Border Relief, different types of legal aid that can come in and provide resources to our families in soliciting some help with their status. Also, I think that we need to meet people where they're at language-wise, encourage them to come to meetings. Like Neil was saying, make sure that they know that when their children are at school, that they are protected and that they will not be in jeopardy of being deported, and they themselves as parents will not be targeted at our schools. That is extremely important. Fear is what keeps people from anything positive. So to reduce that fear is very important.
Thank you. And finally, Greg Land.
So the board has consistently defended and supported undocumented workers. I know Craig Childress, our union, also as a board, we've passed a resolution to that effect to be able to support and have a safe place for our undocumented students. I also feel that with that resolution, we started talking about ways to promote so that there is no costs for anything, for transcripts, for prom, for making it available to anyone. And I think that is an important part to leveling the playing field to say it's available. But again, both Legia and Neil talked about keeping it a safe sanctuary. We definitely want to do that. We definitely want to talk with our counselors to be able to support students, the dreamers who want to stay and have a future and be able to go to college. And we want to promote that through our counselors. Thank you. A common theme I've seen in the questions is, to put it diplomatically, a lack of patience with discussion about plans for both getting back to school and about implementing mitigation about the hate crimes and things. So I'm going to ask two questions, but I'll split it into those two topics. How will you go from talking about having a plan to getting kids back to school to actually having a plan to getting back to school? If you're elected, how will you hold the superintendent and the district accountable to come up with a plan? I mean, how will we get to actually having a plan for getting back to school in COVID? And first on this is Legia, Andrade, Zuniga.
Let's create some stakeholder groups. I think, like I said earlier, each community has different needs. In the disabled community, we have different needs. In the Latino community, we have different needs. In every community, there's different needs. So I think the best thing to do is create a stakeholder group, create a plan, and then move forward from there. Of course, there's nothing is going to be perfect. I give it to the school board. They've been doing the best they can. But like Greg was saying earlier, now that we have more information, now we can move forward from there. What's been working, what hasn't been working, what ideas does the community have to move forward? We can include the teachers and the school staff and our administrators. Everybody that is a stakeholder.
Thank you. And next on this is Greg Land. So if you've been watching the board meetings, we have an update every meeting. And with that, we've talked about different plans that we have in action, how to bring kids back to school, starting in small groups, starting with athletics, starting in different ways, and building off of that. I think we've done a good job of getting started, but I think we need to do better at communicating the plan of all the resources that we've already put in. We've used some of the federal monies to be able to purchase PPE, to be able to get our classrooms ready. So we do have a plan. I just think it needs to be articulated better and better. The problem is it changes. I mean, to be very candid with you, as a principal, it changes week to week based on what's happening either in your county versus Santa Clara County versus San Mateo County. But I will say this, I helped host something that was for the San Mateo School Boards Association in general. And what we did was we brought experts in, and we brought experts in from UCSF and Stanford to talk about this very issue of how to make it happen and how to have a plan. And basically it said exactly that, build confidence. And through confidence, you can have more kids come back to campus with that plan. So again, I think that's what we're going to try to do. Thank you. And finally, Neil Kaufman.
In order to create a plan that's actionable and delivers results, you need to break it down into its subcomponents. It's one thing to say we want a plan, but you need to go down and say, look, first of all, what are the metrics we're going to use to determine when it will be safe for our students and faculty to get back to school? Bring in the key stakeholders, the healthcare community, the teachers, bring in different student groups. We need to understand, okay, when this happens, when these metrics are hit, we're going to go back to school. Second, what are we doing about it in the current so that we can, when we're ready to go back to school, it can be as safe as possible? What investments are we making in our facilities and filtration and ventilation? What equipment are we purchasing? Are we putting in dividers? Are we having testing programs in place? How are we going to test those students? So that's also an important element. And the third thing that's really important that I think is we need to make sure that there are accommodations for people who are not able, it's not safe for them. There might be some people that are living with elderly parents. There are some people on the staff that might have issues, or students. We need to make sure that there's an accommodation so that we can have every student can get back to school as quickly as possible. And those that can't make it, those teachers, staff can't make it, they have a way to participate in the community.
Thank you. And next is, according to the grand jury report, what anti-racist practices and accountability measures should be put in place, and where's the plan for that? According to the grand jury report, what anti-racist practices and accountability measures should be put in place, and where's the plan for that? And first is Greg Land. So when you talk about the practice, I mean,
you're talking about issues of racism that have occurred on campus, after hours. These are some of what the report has talked about, and we need to address it not just at the school level, but at the community level. And it's really bringing in those practices. We already have policies in place that outline anti-discrimination laws and racist, how to deal with racism. It's just actually now implementing it and making sure that it's done on a regular basis. I think what's missing, though, is education to these students and why they're acting out in the way they are. I think this is a bigger society issue that we need to stop and address and really implement the policies that we do have in place already.
Thank you. And next is Neil Kaufman.
Yeah, the grand jury report, I think, was really damning, and I think we really need to take it to heart and really address this and take this seriously. For us to deal with hate, it is a societal issue, but we have an opportunity in our schools to create lasting change. It starts off with education of our students so that they understand what their speech and their actions could have implications could be, and also make sure we have the appropriate training for our teachers. They are the front line out there. They're hearing it. They know the students. They're the ones that should be understanding how the processes can be in place so that we can deal with this. We need to make sure that we have a system where students can comfortably report these incidents of hate, where they feel comfortable that they can have that reported, it can be appropriately dealt with by the administration and the district and tracked by the board, because it's that important that the board should know when these events happen. We need to make sure that we're tracking that, and then we should provide proper recrimination education and support for the victims, and then communicate back to the community. This is what we're doing. This is how it's stopping. We will not allow hate to fester in our community.
Thank you. And finally, Legia Andrade Zuniga.
Yeah, we definitely need to develop a zero tolerance policy, but I think we do have a lot of policies. I think when it comes down to it, it's community building. We need to create dialogues and we need to create different types of partnerships amongst our communities. I think what really brings down hate and misinformation and misinterpretations of things is the lack of communication, bottom line. And if we get enough people together to have a conversation, to have a dialogue and talk about those differences, but be real about it, not sugarcoat it, not pretend like it's not going to happen, like it didn't happen. Like, we need to really get down and say, no, this happened, and this is what's being said. This is what's being done. How can we address it? But how can we move forward? How can we become a cohesive community that, and it's not going to be kumbaya all the time, but every time something comes up, we need to be able to address it in a constructive way.
Thank you. We have time for just a couple more questions. This has been fast. The next to last question is, the current board is focused on the most disadvantaged in our community. I'm glad there is this focus. It is well justified. However, there is little mention of mainstream students. What will be your approach to be inclusive of all students? The current board is highly focused on the most disadvantaged in our community, and the questioner is glad for that. Thinks it's justified. However, there is little mention of the mainstream student. What will be your approach to be inclusive of all students? And first is Neil Kaufman.
I've talked a lot. Our schools need to be able to provide an excellent education and an equitable education. And what this means to me is an education where every student can achieve their full potential. It's really important to support disadvantaged communities. Equity is important. This is a great leveler for our society at large. But every student should know that if they have an opportunity to go to a high school in the San Mateo Union High School District, and if their path is a four-year college, that school should be able to deliver the education for that student to achieve his or her potential. If it's a two-year going to our great community college, it should be there, or we could maybe go through high school, go to the trades, get a job. Excellent education is probably the only equitable education, because every parent wants their kids to get the great education. Every parent wants their students to achieve their full potential. So we need to make sure that we're focusing also on the opportunities and the success of our students in multiple different pathways post high school.
Thank you. And next is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
I hear this question, and I really want to make sure that we are here for all students, no matter what their circumstances matter what their place is in the school district. And with that, I agree with Neil. I also want to make sure that there's collaboration, that all students feel heard, that all students feel supported. I don't like segregation. It's not equal no matter what. And so when I heard that some students left our, certain schools because they didn't feel like those schools were supporting them, it made me really sad, especially if they were at a higher level of their education. But why is that though? And we're talking about equity. Why is it that only certain students are at that level? What's going on? Can those students provide resources and help to other students that aren't? How can we make our communities a whole and make them together, supporting each other?
Thank you. Thank you.
Using the time that that we had before.
Yeah. And finally, recall back our first. I did it again, Greg.
That's
your
okay.
Answer.
No, sorry. But I think the board, being part of the board, we have made that equity a priority because we've seen the problems that it has caused for our students. We want everyone to succeed. And we need to put the resources in there. And that is something that we have a major goal that we set for the administration, to think outside the box. And I think that couples with what we need to do for all our students is create that innovation. So it's not just the same old for everybody, that it's creative and dynamic teaching and engaging teaching for everyone, that they can have access to the highest level of education at all levels, and supporting those who are struggling and those who need it. And I think putting resources into the right place is what we need to do. And that's what our ongoing struggle has been and what we need to do. I do want to commend our district for improving. According to niche.com, we are now top in San Mateo County, and we are number 20 in California. That is competing with other districts with even more affluence than we have. And I think we need to commend ourselves for that. So we are doing a good job. We need to do just more and keep doing it.
Thank you. And finally, the first question was, what is the job description for being on the board of the district? The last question is, what are your unique skills or qualifications that make you a good candidate for the San Mateo Union High School District? What are your unique skills or qualifications that make you a good candidate for the San Mateo Union High School District? In other words, what's your superpower? And first is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
My superpower is my intersectionality. I come from a place where I encompass so many different cultures just because of who I am. I'm a woman of color with a disability that is not represented on this board. And that is where I can bring in my expertise working with diverse groups, with different types of boards and commissions, representing all kinds of people all the time. I have a lot of experience working with, like I was saying earlier, just different types of people. So I speak a universal language. But not only that, I have experience with undocumented communities. I have experience with disabled communities. And so I really want to make sure that I can bridge gaps, and I'm a community builder. That is my superpower.
Thank you. And Greg Land, what is your superpower?
My superpower is the fact of my whole life has been in education. So I'm the education superhero in a sense, because what I know is I'm in the trenches. I see what happens every day, like what's going on right now. I'm experiencing it in my job during the day, so I can see it and bring it and ask questions to the administration and question what's going on and could you do it different? Them be a thought partner to be able to grow and change and develop policies that will work and oversight that will be constructive. And I think that's something that I bring to the table. I'm unique in that sense. I am biracial, I'm Latino, and I'm white. I was brought, had a very diverse background growing up. I've been a teacher in East Los Angeles and Redwood City, even taught Ligia's brother, it seems. So I think that's my superpower, and I think it's an important power to bring to our school boards.
Thank you. And finally, Neil Kaufman, what is your superpower?
This is a huge and complex district. There are some 200,000 people that are in the district, over 100,000 voting constituents. There are 9,000 students and thousands of employees. We have a budget where we're going to be allocating $1 billion over the next 4 years. We're spending $500,000 a day on educating our students. I think the superpower that I bring is sort of that intersectionality between the professional and educational experience in the field of finance, in working with organizations even much larger than this, to develop and implement plans that line up with the financial resources so you can deliver excellent results. Combined with the community involvement, whether it's as a parent of a current and future student, as a lacrosse coach, or having led the Measure L, which actually I work closely with the board and members of the community, with groups from labor and the Teachers Association to help raise the $385 million to support our students. So I think it's that combination between the professional experience and the community experience that will help in guiding this large organization.
Thank you. And I apologize to everyone that will go a little bit long over our hour, but I had so many great questions that I just couldn't help myself. So we're getting ready for the closing statements. And for the closing statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes for each, and we reverse the order from the opening statements. And the first closing statement is Legia Andrade Zuniga.
Thank you. Tonight, I hope I've shown you how much I deeply care about the San Mateo Union High School District, our students, their families, the teachers, and our school staff. We have a very diverse school district, and our leadership should reflect that diversity. Our district must deliver a great education to every student, no matter their circumstances. Now more than ever, in these incredibly challenging times, we must collaborate in a thoughtful, inclusive, transparent, and pragmatic way. The pandemic has exacerbated inequities in our community. And if you look at the data, the Latinx population has suffered more than ever. It's important that our board members are accessible to our students and provide them a voice. Although I am uniquely qualified to be a champion for historically invisible and underrepresented students, you can trust that I will strive to represent each student in the district. I will inspire all students and stakeholders to do so and achieve more. I particularly want to inspire our young women, students with disabilities, students of color, those who have been through the foster care system, our English learners, adult students, or those who have had contact with the correctional system. Our school district and community at large has talked a lot recently about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. These topics are deeply personal to me because I've been fighting for them my whole life. At this moment in history, I hope that you agree that I'm the right candidate for the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. Representation matters. As Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said, until we get equality in education, we will not have an equal society. Thank you, League of Women Voters, everyone participating, our students and their families, and my fellow candidates for this opportunity.
Thank you. And our next closing statement is Greg Land.
Thank you. And just like Legia said, thank you so much for setting this up. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and our PTOs and parent groups. I'm going to quote the San Mateo Daily Journal in what they said in their endorsement for me running for candidate again. Land is a solid board trustee, and has also provided a set of experience as a school principal and a former member of the Burlingame Board of Trustees. He is open and communicative with a strong awareness of the importance of keeping mental health of students and teachers at the forefront. I think that, to me, kind of sums up what I'm all about. I still have more work to do. I want to run for re-election because I feel like we need to be more innovative. We need to be more equitable. We need to come up with policies that will help all students achieve. And we need to do it and be the forefront of any school district in the country. We can do that. We have great facilities, thanks to our bonds, thanks to the buildings. We have a very great financial situation compared to a lot of districts in the area. We are going to need to maintain that. We've had a good reserve and we need to maintain that reserve. We've used our money wisely and we need to do that continually in the future. So I think I bring a balance and I'd like to see that in the future for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Neil Kaufman.
Public education, especially well-run, well-led, well-taught high schools, is one of the most important institutions in our country and our society. It's the place where every student should have an opportunity to reach their full potential, achieve their dreams. It's an opportunity for mixing of cultures and divergence of thoughts, opinions, and different aspects of our community. I think that I am passionate about the fact that we need to make sure that our high schools deliver an excellent, equitable opportunity where all of our students can achieve our full potential. And we have the resources available for us to deliver a great education to all of our students. As long as we are financially responsible, that we appropriately allocate the funds, and then we are held our district accountable to make sure that they're delivering the results, that our money is spent on our community and our students. And then we need to insist on transparency. We need to make sure that we have a plan that we can get our kids back to school as quickly and safely as possible. Safely for the students, safely for the staff, safely for the teachers. And then we really need to make sure that we also take on this issue with hate. When I talked about, Jerice just mentioned our schools are so important in terms of healing and helping our society. We need to make sure that this is put at the forefront, that the board stays on top of this, supports the district, holds the district accountable to making sure that we don't allow hate to fester in our districts. Well, thank you all to the League of Women Voters. I really appreciate this. Thank you to the other fellow candidates. And I hope to the people out there watching, I hope I earned an opportunity to earn your trust and serve on the board of the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have a few slides about voting that Kathy's going to share, and I'm going to have her talk through them so that they will be visible to the YouTube viewers while she's talking.
And I am almost there.
There you go.
There we go. Let's talk about voting. Everyone should have received their ballot by now. Those went out by October 5th. So if you haven't, you need to get in touch with the San Mateo Election Board. You can, once you have filled out your ballot, you've got 3 different ways in which that you can drop off that ballot. You can mail it back with the postage paid envelope, or you can use a county drop box. And again, you can go to the San Mateo election website and find out where the drop boxes are closest to you. You can also vote in person, and the vote centers are also on that same website. So that's https://www.smchsde.org/elections. And this little red reminder here says to sign your ballot. Well, actually, you don't sign your ballot anymore. You sign the back of the envelope. Okay, so fill out your ballot, put it in the envelope, fill out the instructions on the back, and seal it up. You're good to go. Okay, you can still register. Ooh, is today the 19th?
Yep.
Okay. You can still probably register to vote via the website if you have not done so, but I won't guarantee it. You now have a really nifty tool called where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov, in which you can track your ballot. I can testify myself that I fill out my ballot, and it was before they started counting, and I was really worried. Going, where's my ballot? Went on this website, and sure enough, when they started counting, I got a text message and email saying that they had recorded my ballot. So it does work. Vote early and you're done. But you can also vote in person if you choose to do so. And there's another website, okay, that gives you information about the whole voting process. If you need information, besides your sample ballot, you should have received the voter guide in the mail, but you can review it online at this website. There's also an easy voter guide. Normally those would be available in various locations. Right now, you can pick up a hard copy at local libraries. And most of the local libraries, though not open, do have outdoor facilities for picking up library books. And I was just there the other day, and sure enough, the voter guide was there. So you can pick up a hard copy of the voter guide at your local libraries. And then finally, the League of Women Voter manages the website Voter's Edge, which is a great place to go for understanding what is on your ballot and who your candidates are. A lot of candidate information there. And finally, I think this basically covers both Margie and I. We are both members of the League of Women Voters. We'd love for you to join us if you're interested in doing these kinds of forums as well. We do proposition pro-con presentations, and we do voter registration. All these things are necessary for our democracy and require a lot of volunteers. So if you're interested in doing any of this kind of work, check us out at the website, LWVN CSMC. That's League of Women Voters, North and Central San Mateo County.org/join. And then that's it. So I'll put it back to Margie.
Thank you. As Kathy said, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, and membership is open to both men and women of voting age. So yes, please join us if you had fun this evening. But finally, and most importantly, in conclusion, let's applaud and thank the candidates for running. It's not an easy task, and we appreciate their time and their service to their community. So thank you all, and especially to the candidates for running for the San Mateo Union High School District. Thank you all, and good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.